What's going on, everyone? So, the upcoming Scream 7 is going to be a more Sidney-focused, Sidney-centric film, which, I am of somebody that wants to kind of move off the Sidney arc. Love Sidney, grew up with Sidney, right? She is the final girl. She is Scream in so many ways, but I am somebody that, I want the franchise to continue. And it's like, how long can you go with the Sidney route? How many different ways and how many different peoples and cousins, nephews, uncles want her dead? And, at some point, does it kind of get stale? Has always been my concern. But given the circumstances and the way that, things kind of unfolded with Melissa Barrera and then Jenna Ortega's departure, and then now fast forward to, it's like, okay, well, what do we do? Okay, well, let's just play it safe, bring Sidney back, tell a new Sidney Prescott story, have Kevin Williamson at the helm, right? Because he has the familiarity with the characters, he has the relationship, right? Bring back Gale Weathers, kind of make it more of a Sidney-centric film. Okay, I'm on board. I get it. Given the circumstances, that was the safest bet. That was the safest route. Let's do it, right? And you're seeing all kinds of different possibilities and potentials of Stu and Roman and Dewey and all this stuff. But at the end of the day, it is going to be very Sidney and her family focused, right? You have Sidney Prescott, you have her family, which adds an entirely new element in and of itself, right? Like Sidney has always, been the face and been, at the forefront, but she's always just been responsible for herself. Right? She's only had to keep herself safe. Yes, she wants to keep Dewey and Gale and, Derek and Randy and these others, right? She's always wanted to keep them safe. But at the end of the day, she's solely responsible for herself. Well, now she has a husband. She has children, multiple children, right? Multiple daughters that she now has people that she wants to keep safe more than herself. So I am really interested and curious to see how are they going to approach that, right? Is there going to be a point in this film where Sidney has to make decisions, has to make choices, which I really do think that they should kind of lean into personally, right? Like, can we get something where Sidney has to choose between her husband and her daughter? Like, imagine that compromise. Imagine being in that compromised position. Imagine being in that place where, and look, obviously that doesn't mean that you have to kill either, right? You can always write some way to where Sidney saves both, or, Gale ends up saving one and she saves the other and whatever, right? Like, there's just because you do something like that doesn't mean that, that means one has to die. But I would love to, again, you have a family dynamic. It's not just Sidney Prescott. Yes, it's going to be more focused and centered on her. And you have her daughter, Tatum, and her husband, Mark, and then the two younger kids. They're supposed to go and be at grandma's, right? But overall, you have these stakes in Scream that you never had before, at least with Sidney Prescott. I mean, you've never had a period. We've never had a family that has been targeted, right? There's always been family undertones, family elements, dating back to Maureen Prescott, right? She was the thing that started it all, and then Roman full circle, and then Jill, right? So there's always been family tie-ins, family connections, family elements, even, the good old-fashioned revenge route from Scream 2 and Scream 6. Right? But to have a family, a mother, a husband, a daughter, all be targeted for Ghostface, right? I want to see some higher stakes raised. I want to see some tough decisions having to be made, or at least be put in those positions. You're not killing Sidney, right? So how do you raise the stakes enough to where it's believable and gives us that anxiety and that angst? And, because again, yes, you could do chase scenes, you can do all this stuff with Sidney Prescott. And to an extent, you're still going to get the reaction that you want from an audience. But in the back of our minds, we all know they're not going to kill Sidney. We're not about to watch her die, right? So, there isn't that level, which is why, as much as it sucked, I was game for killing Dewey, right? And I've even talked about, hey, maybe you should kill Gale, because it does raise the stakes. It makes you think, right? Whenever you see Dewey get stabbed or anything like that, in the back of your mind, you're thinking we're going to see him give the thumbs up at the end, right? Because that's just what happens when Gale gets attacked. It's in the back of your mind, you're like, all right, she's gonna walk away from this at some point, right? Like she might be in the hospital bed or whatever, but she's gonna survive. And you saw that at the end of Scream 6, even where she gets attacked and she ends up surviving, right? But now you have all these new characters in the fold. You have all this new potential tension and anxiety that you can build through various scenes of Mark, where it's like every one of Sidney's boyfriends died. Right? So like, are they actually going to kill the husband this time? Right? So if you put him in a position, well, now that's something where it's like, ooh, like we might have something here, right? Like, okay, Sidney's daughter, you might think like, they would never kill Sidney's daughter, but would they? Right? I mean, maybe that if they really want to set the tone and set the standard, even if they don't, even if you don't necessarily believe that they will, you still don't know, right? With Sidney, I think we all kind of know what they're going to do. They're not going to take out Sidney Prescott. Sidney Prescott's going to survive, right? So I really want to see them utilize and capitalize on the things that they can, right? Take advantage of the things that you can take advantage of, such as, again, the family dynamic and putting the family in these tough spots to where Sidney has to navigate that, or Sidney has to try to survive, or, maybe Sidney's even kind of putting her life at jeopardy or putting herself on the line to try to save, her daughter or her husband or whatever, because you have an element of Scream that you've just never had before. Sidney's never had to do any of that stuff. Obviously, you saw like in Scream 3, Sidney show up because Roman captured, Dewey and Gale and kind of used them as bait, right? But I think it'd be much higher stakes now if it's her husband and her kid, right? Like, because, like Dewey and Gale, like they would probably, especially Dewey, would probably sacrifice himself for Sidney, right? So Sidney could get out and escape and be alive, right? But Sidney's not just going to leave her family. Sidney might, like leave Dewey and Gale for a moment, right? And try to all type thing, but she's not going to do that for her family. If her husband and daughter are tied up, like she's, she'll, hey, here you go, take me instead type thing if you have to, right? Like it adds layers to this that you just don't really get. So I'm really excited for that. And I really hope that they kind of lean towards that direction. I really hope that they do a good job of giving us that build up. Right? Giving us those scenes and really capitalize. Like, I don't want to see them play it safe. They played it safe in Scream 6, right? Overly safe. I don't want to see that happen again. And Radio Silence excuse was like, hey, we were leaving. We didn't want to end on a sour note, but it's a horror franchise. It's a slasher film, right? Like it's supposed to end on a bad note. Like I'd rather you kill everybody than, kill nobody, right? Because again, that's not what it's about. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass a question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How you feel with your thoughts? Agree with me? Disagree with me? Kind of mixed in the middle. I would feel either way. I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. It's me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel. What are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.